If your customer can look at your infrastructure, okay, your team structure, what will it tell about your brand?
2-second delay at checkout is effectively a $20 million in missing opportunities for bad infrastructure into abundant carts. Zack Hamilton guides how to fix it. Zack is the creator of Experience Performance System and a leader who bridges the gap between executive strategy and technical execution. In this episode, we are looking under the hood at the hidden infrastructure of customer experience. We are exploring how often overlooked decisions like API reliability, latency, and uptime are the real forces shaping your customer's journey. It is a masterclass in how technical infrastructure is not just an IT concern, but a very foundation of customer trust and retention. Zach is the seasoned podcaster himself and the go-to expert for CEOs who want to turn CX into high-velocity execution machine. Let us welcome Zach Hamilton. Hey Zach, good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on, Nav? I appreciate you inviting me and looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Great. The topic we're going to cover today is hidden infrastructure behind customer experience. We all interact with brands and sometimes we represent brands to our customers. We have played like on both sides of the game, but we also know what happens inside. But as a customer, when you see like how brands are interacting, and sometimes you feel like it's okay, it's not the perfect experience. I do see over social media sometimes you post as a customer, okay, how do you feel about latest interactions with restaurants, coffee shops, stores, retails, and all those. When do you feel like, hey, this experience is not good enough, and you sense it like an infrastructure problem? Okay, and what can fill that infrastructure gap from your expertise?
Yeah, I really love this question because I would answer this as when you think about an infrastructure problem or a challenge, I would answer it as almost always. Right. And what I would say by that is, even myself as a customer, when I go and experience these specific brands and I even post about it, um, what we experience is either the magic of a great experience, right, or a frustration of an experience that just wasn't very good. But it's never a result of just a single interaction or a single employee that we might engage with, or even that single moment. It really is the result of infrastructure. So, what are those invisible systems and workflows and data flows, and even the decisions that were made probably significant amount of time ago by everyone within the organization that is a customer, I feel in that very moment, of everything that's happening upstream, right? So when a customer says, "Man, that just worked," what I'm really reacting to is the entire orchestration of that single moment that I just experienced. So I'm reacting to, look, those systems are synchronized, the data's flowing, all those specific decisions have already been essentially designed, right? And guardrails have been put into place. And that's why things are happening so fast. And so ultimately what happens then is the friction that I could experience, it has been designed out, or if it is with a new employee or the systems go down, right? Where it's not designed for, that's where friction happens. And so, to me, when I think about some of those broken experiences, Nav, that I've also like experienced, it's rarely because someone didn't care. Right? A lot of times we hear, well, they just didn't care about giving me a great experience. I don't believe that. I believe every employee shows up because they want to deliver great experiences, right? But it's really because the infrastructure that you pointed out underneath kind of that experience, we don't feel APIs, right? We don't feel
Yes.
databases or governance models or workflow engines that are put together. What we feel is the wait time. We feel the repetition. We feel the confusion. We feel the friction in there. And so every single one of those feelings maps directly back to infrastructure design. And that's why I say experience is not what you design, Experience is what your infrastructure allows.
100% agree with that. And you mentioned the point of like data silos, like fragmented data, unstructured data behind the scenes are causing those frictions to customer experience. And do you also think, like, from your experience, you have seen that actually happening on the field about different teams have different goals specific to their own teams. So they kind of miss that context to align with other teams, and it becomes suddenly a strategic issue in the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. When I think about the way organizations are set up today, it's all about power, right? It's the power hierarchy. And ultimately, decisions essentially become a monopoly within the organization. And so when you think about the way that data flows through silos. And ultimately, those silos are set up to protect that specific kind of functional leader, right? So every functional leader has their own kind of tech silo where they get a specific picture. They're part of the customer journey, right? What they're designing. And so ultimately, we feel that, Nav, right? Because every customer journey, we don't see the different departments. We see one specific brand, but the way that they're interacting inside of the brand is they're acting in departments, not a single just customer journey.
Any suggestion, like where to start to address this gap?
Yeah, it's one of the things that I have been talking about a lot with experience systems. I'll give you an example. We have one retailer that I work with. Ultimately, they have 5 customer kind of segments or cohorts that they know they absolutely have to win those. If they win those, segments, they will deliver significant, year-over-year revenue impact. And so, ultimately, instead of, again, staying kind of in this siloed piece, we actually created what we called a journey pod, for each one of those specific segments. And so within that journey pod is someone from each one of those teams. So all the different departments are represented. However, the way that we've constructed this differently is the journey pod is responsible for the customer lifetime value of that specific cohort. So they all are just focused on how do we continuously deliver great experiences that increase customer lifetime value. So instead of at a marketing level, we're trying to increase, store traffic either to the website or in store. And we do that with promotions or discounts. Well, guess what? They're just responsible for the entire customer lifetime value. So they really have to understand, how does that digital interaction work on the website? What are those specific frictions in store and even post delivery that drive returns? And so now we're challenging the marketer to think about that holistic customer journey versus just driving awareness and traffic and promotions. So I think that's the most important element that any organization can do, whether you're B2C or B2B, is design journey pods where everyone is focused on one core metric.
And who's the authority to sponsor this, to approve this? Because it has to begin from the top, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we worked with the C-suite in order to set up, and it started slow. So of course, one of the ways that power structure, like this, essentially threatened the power structure of the hierarchy. So they wanted to test. So we tested a journey pod, had significant impact, the first 6 months of customer lifetime value. And so ultimately, then as we constructed the next journey pods, the first piece was who owns the outcome. And so the owner of the outcome, of course, was the journey pod, but each one of the journey pods has an executive owner, not an executive sponsor, but an executive owner. And so with that executive owner, so that executive owner could be the VP of marketing or merchandising or operations, but the executive owner is responsible not only for the outcome of that specific journey pod, just like everyone else, but they also ensure that they have the funding, the decisions that are being
Yep.
made at velocity in order to deliver value.
You brought pods up. And I do remember one of my other guests also mentioned about having pod structure rather than teams or sprints or scrums. Or, I mean, like pod model has been there for a bit, but I still feel like a lot of people still don't know about like really how pod format works. You want to give a little bit light on like how you structured pods and what is the best practice?
Yeah, I think ultimately, Nav, the most important piece here is when you think about every pod needs to have one core metric that they're focused on, not 14 or 15 different, individual silo metrics. And so I always look at it, for example, in retail, what's customer lifetime value? And if you really think about customer lifetime value, you're ultimately trying to get the customer to spend more often. So that's why we anchor it in customer lifetime value. For example, in financial services, it could be assets under management. But ultimately, that North Star metric should be a P&L metric. It should be something that's delivering value into the business because that's what customer centricity really is. It has to deliver value both for the customer and for the business. And then when you go to set up those pods, you got to have that cross functional team. So everyone who's responsible for delivering those micro experiences across the customer journey. And there's two key pieces here. You have to give them ownership of the decisions that they're making,
Mm.
right? Because the pods are held accountable to one, are we achieving customer lifetime value? Are we delivering the experiences that our specific customer cohort needs in order to increase customer lifetime value? But the real piece of this, Knob, it comes down to ownership. A lot of times we set up scrums or cross functional teams, and
Yep.
they're all working towards different metrics, right? They still kind of stay siloed though in the way that they work in their metrics. And that's why it just doesn't work. Yet it's safe. It's very safe because if you think about the hierarchy, right, they're reporting out on their own individual kind of metrics that they're responsible for, and it doesn't really challenge the power structure. Whereas in the power structure, your executive leadership team, they're responsible for decisions. But if you think about journey pods, the journey pods are responsible for those specific decisions.
So no bureaucracy in podding structure. Yeah, I like that. This is, yeah, we have to equip our employees for sure. We need to enable them to deliver that customer experience. I mean, if then what is the freedom of like new ideas in there?
Yeah, and ultimately the reason why I like the pods and this infrastructure, and it's all about, the design and the ownership piece of this is because ultimately every pod should be one, you get measured off of your decision velocity. How quickly are you making decisions? So insight to action, right? It comes down to decision making. But then how impactful are you with delivering on those specific initiatives? So how long does it take? What's the value that you create? And quite frankly, you're just looking at the efficiency of the pod. And as a pod owner, as the executive owner of the pod, what do I need to do to make them more efficient? What are the barriers that I need to knock down, the challenges that I need to help them solve to where their pods are just working efficiently as they can to deliver the value to the organization? And this all sets up as, hey, this is a human led pod. It's the maturation stage to getting to agentic CX, which is now instead of having a bunch of humans in that pod, you're going to have agents. And the responsibility of the new kind of modern CX leader is they are continuously optimizing the agents by working with their cross functional team. So that's essentially going from human led to agentic led, but you can't jump from going from an agile pod, for example, agentic without having this human led pod structure in place to where you're building that muscle or that internal capability of decision making.
That sounds very interesting, and I agree with this. Like your infrastructure is not just set of machines and tools and services. It's also like how your employees are using it with their full efficiency to infrastructure's full capacity. So this is great combination to be looking at as a part of one infrastructure. So one last question, Zach. If your customer can look at your infrastructure, okay, your team structure, what will it say? Like, it's not about you or your brand. I mean, I'm saying like in general, like if customer have like you go to restaurants, customers can see the kitchen typically. right? And we can see like hygiene and things like that. But what about infrastructure in this case? Like, what will customers feel and how should they feel?
Yeah, well, to your point, right? If I'm going into a restaurant and I see a really dirty kitchen, that ultimately becomes your brand, right? And so for us, or the way that I think about this is your infrastructure is your brand. So if I as a customer could actually see, Nav, your systems, your workflows, your governance, how you make decisions, I would ultimately understand immediately why your experience feels the way that it does. We'll be able to see if your company is built for clarity or chaos. Is it built for trust or control? Is it built for autonomy or bureaucracy? Is it built for, intelligence or just compliance? And so a lot of brands believe that their brand is shaped by marketing, and it's not. It's shaped by infrastructure. And so when you think about when Apple feels elegant, yes, they have excellent brand storytelling, but it really is that system coherence, right? Feels elegant, whether I'm shopping with them online, through their app, in store, interacting with an Apple Genius, or that unboxing experience feels incredibly elegant, right? When I'm unboxing that at home, not just for a Mac, but if you think about their investment in Beats, right? I'm a loyal Beats wearer. So I recently had to get a new pair of Beats. That unboxing experience of the Beats headphones is just as elegant
Yep.
as unboxing my MacBook Pro, right? Because they're associated with Apple. And so when you think about another one like Amazon, to me, Amazon feels convenient, almost effortless.
Yep.
A lot of people think that's a CX strategy, but it's really not. It's logistic or orchestration at their warehouse, right? It's data intelligence, it's decision automation. All of that is working together to make
Which
sure
is built
that
around
is
CX, of course. But yeah, implementing that level of scale in process is tough.
yeah. And so a lot of times we say, hey, we want to build a customer journey or we want to build a service design blueprint. Ultimately, what you really should be thinking about is what's our infrastructure like? How are we mapping that? And are we causing like, quite frankly, what customers are seeing through these negative experiences is just organizational trauma and bureaucracy on display in lifetime.
Thank you, Zach, for your all insights and information today. Very valuable. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And that's a wrap on this episode. We hope you are walking away with at least one battle-tested strategy you can apply to your own digital journey today. This show is built for leaders like you who are tired of the fluff and ready for real solutions. If you found value in this discussion today, please subscribe to the channel and leave us a review. It helps us bring more world-class leaders to the table. Also, feel free to share this episode with a colleague who is navigating these same digital trenches. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.